Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at @Stetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 271, and we have got a pair of 2-0 defeats to talk about when it comes to Tottenham Hotspur this week. I've got Todd alongside to do it with. He is at TC_Kasho. TC, what is up, my friend?
Well, any day, brother. Any day that you can not be in negative 35 and wind chill is a good day. So I am not. You are not, once
Not
again,
anymore.
which is good news.
Yeah.
I guess there was some football to talk about. I mean, yeah, if you ever read, and now the book's going to escape me, but the Phantom Tollbooth. There's a spot in that book where the main character gets stuck in the doldrums. And that we are most assuredly stuck in the doldrums, my man.
We very much are. That is a really great way to put it. It's also, you mentioned the temperature. That is what half the country is still dealing with, too. The doldrums of temperature. Yeah, I had to venture east this week. It was brutally cold. I did not like it. I am back home, thankfully. So we are recording this just to put a timestamp on it on Monday evening. Of course, Spurs are playing a game in less than, 30 hours from right now, or less than 24 hours, I should say. They're playing Tuesday against Newcastle, so we're obviously not going to be talking about that match, but we're going to recap United. We're going to recap Spurs Women, their defeat against Chelsea, and touch on a few other things here. But let's I guess just start back and go to Old Trafford on Saturday, where Spurs do lose 2-0, and obviously, the story surrounding this game is going to be Cristian Romero's red card and kind of everything that happened after that. Even before the red card, I feel like there wasn't a whole lot to this match. Obviously, Spurs are beleaguered at this point, and you said it. I think doldrums is kind of a great word to use because there's just not a lot going on with this first team, and there's not a lot going on in terms of positivity, in terms of good news from an injury standpoint. Just all the snowball that could be rolling down the hill is continuing to do so. Todd, what was your grand takeaway? And we'll obviously get into some of the minutiae of it, but your grand takeaway from Spurs going up to Old Trafford and really just not even doing much of anything and not putting up a fight.
Well, three things, always three, right? So the first is this is the exact same Tottenham Hotspur team that we've been looking at for the last 2 months under Thomas Frank, going, this isn't fucking good enough. And we continue to sweat and shed points, and everybody's looking around and they're all shoulders, Andrew. Just nobody's got a clue. And so that's the number one thing. The second thing is, do you want to talk about Cudi Romero's red card? I want to talk about the just regularity with which Michael Oliver drops trow and levies a heavy shit on Tottenham Hotspur every time he gets the opportunity. And then the third thing that I want to say is that Man United under Michael Carrick is playing like a team that's 15 points higher than us in the table. Because, Andrew, they're 15 points higher than us in the table. So this game, red card aside, there didn't look like there was a lot in it for Spurs in the way that we were going at it. Again, I think a lot of that has to do with the way that the game was officiated before the red card, but nobody really wants to talk about that either. At the end of the day here, the real question that I have as I'm looking at this game is for you. Because let's say we're at the exact same position in the table, which is, what are we, fucking 14th or something?
We're 15th.
Yeah, it's 15th, 6 points above the drop, like whatever it is, just a mess, whatever we're in, right? But we're still in the same position. From our last two games in the Premier League, Andrew, we've salvaged 1 point. Well, how would you be feeling right now if those two results were reversed? If we had gone up and gotten smacked in the mouth or hosted Pep and got smacked in the mouth at home, as we're all too familiar with doing, and then we go on the road to Old Trafford and we get a scrappy point. Like, how would you be feeling about this situation? Because I feel like we're in the exact same place. We are who they thought they were, and we let them off the hook. Is kind of what I'm looking at right now when it comes to Tottenham, because we all felt good about the fact that we had a 2-2 draw against City, when in reality, all that did for us is help Arsenal. And as I'm looking at this situation, I'm going, we require the magnificent, the truly incredible, just to scrape by. And as you are so fond of saying, my friend, it's the hope that kills you.
Well, I look at it a little bit differently, as I'm one to do when it comes to thoughts that you bring me, which is why we're so good going back and forth here in a platform like this. I was glad for the point against City, not for any other reason than it's a point that we need to try to avoid relegation at this point, because this is not a club that can be worrying about what Arsenal is doing at the top of the table and not worry
Oh,
about
no,
trying to help
I'm
City
100% with
out.
you. But if these two results were reversed, it would feel like a little bit more of the state of things. The order of things is the same as it was. Instead, it's that hope because we always show up against the best teams, and then we shoot ourselves in the foot.
I guess it wouldn't have really mattered much to me, because if you're talking about, Spurs got smashed at home by City, but then went on the road and picked up a point at United, like, that wouldn't have surprised me either. The fact that it happened in reverse, it doesn't really change anything for me. Spurs at this point just need to be scrapping the points wherever the hell they can,
No, no,
because
no,
they're
and we've
going to
talked
need
about it.
all of them. Like,
No, and
I'm
we've talked about it, man.
and
We're
I think
literally
the part
looking
that
at we need 11 more points.
right. And I think the part that bothers me so much is, and I'm going to reference a little bit of Thomas Frank's Monday press conference ahead of the Newcastle match, because he was asked multiple times about the fact that Spurs are clearly in a relegation battle without actually saying that they're in a relegation battle. And he kind of just blew it off, which to some point I can expect that, because you don't want to breathe into the flames if you're Thomas
Yeah.
Frank to some extent. You don't want to push any panic buttons. They're 25 matches in. They're not 35 matches in. There's a big difference between those two things. But I think that the biggest problem that I have is there are no actual signs that this can improve at this point.
There
And
hasn't been any actual signs that this can improve for the last 3 months. I don't know
and
what we're talking about.
and when I say that, I don't even mean there's no signs of them sacking Thomas Frank, because I don't even think that does anything for them at this point. It's a matter of healthy bodies and players that can go out and put it all on the pitch to keep this team afloat. And right now it is barely afloat just from a warm body standpoint. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but Spurs lost Destiny Udogie once again. I know that's shocking to everyone, but he went down with another injury in this match. And then, of course, we're going to come on to talk about Cristian Romero. He's going to miss the next 4 matches. Cristian Romero is not going to play until the Champions League tie in the middle of March. And it is currently February 9th. Like, that's a lengthy layoff as well. Like, this team is in desperate need of actual players. And, of course, we're talking 9-10 days after the January window closes, where they did Bupkis. Like, Conor Gallagher, great. I love it. C'est la vie. They didn't do shit in January and knew that they had this problem laying ahead of them. And I think that's what I keep coming back to is, what exactly are we doing here? What exactly are we supposed to be excited about? I'll be honest. Thought about just skipping the pod this week, because what is there to talk about other than the same old shit? But we're here doing it because I do think it's important to point out that while this is really bad, I still don't even really know that we have bottomed out.
We haven't bottomed out because we're in
worse.
15th and not in 18th, right? And that's the thing, is that it's likely going to get worse. It's likely going to get worse.
Yeah, it really.
And
it
so,
really sucks. When you think about it that way, it does.
Because just probability wise, right? It's likely going to get worse. And so, isn't there like a 14 or 21 day gap between when we play Newcastle and the next match?
It is not that long, but it is a little bit of a gap, yes. Because we don't play next weekend, we will play the following weekend, and that is, of course, the Arsenal match. So there is a gap between the Newcastle match and the next game. And
I've heard it postured, and I highly concur, Andrew, that is a ripe old time for interim regime change.
which would be fine, but I will continue to say I don't know exactly what that does because of the squad and to the point
Sure.
where the
Well, let
squad
me
is
ask you
right
this
now.
question because, as we've discussed it at numerous times, your perspective on, the glass full versus glass half empty is different than mine. One could say the exact same thing about the United team, that Michael Carrick has turned completely on its ear. If you asked me at the beginning of the season who's in better shape, who's in worse off shape, now granted they went out and they signed in Wemo and Cunha, and both of those players are special and they make a significant difference. And we've signed those players over the last few years. They're just fucking injured for us. And so what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at this entire situation going, you're right. Is Thomas Frank being sacked going to make a difference against Newcastle? And the answer is probably not. But is it going to make a difference at Hotspur Way? Is it going to make a difference in the locker room? Is it going to make a difference, you know, for the fans being able to actually root for the guy who's bringing their team? Like his his every time he stands in front of a microphone, I just want to like get the hook from freaking Showtime at the Apollo and just hook that man away off stage left, dude.
Yeah.
Is rough.
Let's not mistake this. Me saying I don't know what it will change does not mean I think it shouldn't change. I definitely still think Thomas Frank should not be the manager of this football club.
Well, and I guess that like the more we go into this, Andrew, and the more we're proven right on that, the more angry I get that we could see this all the way from Arizona and San Diego, respectively, but Vinay Venkatesham can't see this sitting over at the Hotspur house. Like, how has this been allowed to go on? This is not acceptable at Tottenham Hotspur.
If I had to posture a guess as to why this has gone on, it's simply because they don't have, and I said this weeks, if not months ago, they don't have the perfect replacement. And that's not to say you have to wait for the perfect replacement, but they don't have a good enough option to replace him right now. And they probably feel like upending it this quickly could cause more instability within the team and actually I know they don't really feel like they're in a relegation scrap right now, even though they are, but I'm sure they feel as if they were to do something like that, that it could further drop them into a scrap with West Ham at this point, and Leeds and Forest for that matter, because let's not forget them. I do really... I don't want to be all doom and gloom, even though it's hard not to be. But when you look at this, when you look at the fixture list ahead, and you look at how many games there are left to play, what are we? We're looking at another 13 or 14 matches, something in that range. I don't see the points. I don't see where they're getting the points from, playing the way that they are. And like I said, not just because of tactics and strategy from the manager standpoint, but just simply from a player perspective. And the fact that they're going to have to continue to play players that are either already on the borderline because they've played too many minutes this season, cough, cough, Pedro Porro, or players that are just returning from injury who are now going to be pushed into a further, more important role, cough, cough, Radu Dragusin, which, again, can't believe we're to a point where we're relying on Radu Dragusin to play significant minutes in the business end of a Premier League season in a relegation scrap, but that is where this club is, and that is, I think,
That's the perfect place to play Radu Radishin, because that's where that type of player belongs. And I think that therein lies the point, right? Is
right, exactly. That's where.
No, but to be fair, like the reason why we're having to rely on him is because our captain is done for 4 games, and the backup that we bought that we all love snapped a tendon in his fucking toe and won't play again this season.
Yeah, it's insane. It's just the flukiest.
Those soft tissue injuries, dude, I'm curious. Are we next? Is this a San Francisco 49ers practice facility situation? Like,
that's going to have to be an investigation that somebody on the ground does. And neither you or I are going to be able to figure out the answer to that question.
If anyone listening to this knows as to whether or not there is some sort of data center or electromagnetic phenomena going on next to the fucking training ground at Hotspur Way, or the stadium for that matter. And honestly, Andrew, as I'm watching that game against City, I absolutely go back to my hypothesis that like the runway after you like to run down the pitch after you like go past the end line is too sharp. There's not enough space, and if that means you have to lose 1,000 seats because you have to move the front row back one more, then you fucking lose 1,000 seats because you're injuring your players left, right, and sideways. And if you can make that more gradual, you're going to save lives.
They might as well remove 1,000 seats if they're going to be playing in the championship because not enough people are going to come see them. Let's talk about Romero at this point because I know we want to have it out a little bit, you and I. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that this game was officiated well. I'm not gonna sit here and defend anything that happened on the pitch from an officiating standpoint. But that's also just where we are in the Premier League. Premier League games are not officiated well. VAR is a disgrace. All the things, all the caveats. I totally am on board with you there. Where I come down on this, though, is simply that the center back and the captain of your club and the best player cannot continue to have these things happen. And whether or not we like it, whether or not it's true, whether or not it should be the case, he has a reputation and has had a reputation for a while. And he needs to know that, and he needs to be better. Like, that kind of kick and that kind of follow through just can't happen in that situation.
No, it's what else?
That's all I got.
Okay. When you slow that kick down and freeze frame it for VAR, I can see your perspective. But in the real time moment of the game, he won the fucking ball and the follow through clipped the guy's heel. That's all. That's all the fuck that it is. And you looking at that instantly and saying because it was slowed down for you and zoomed in by 200 and stopped conveniently, it started directly after he made contact with the ball and it cleared the frame and followed through until the moment and it stopped right when he's standing on the guy's foot, right? What I'm saying to you in this moment is you're right. Cristian Romero does have a reputation. What I'm also saying to you in this moment is that reputation is largely undeserved and in a big way can be owed directly to the calls of one Michael Oliver. If you look at the amount of times that Cootie's been tossed and the person doing the red card giving over the course of his time in the Premier League, you may find some interesting corollaries. But the only one that really matters to me and stands out is Chelsea. And you know what I'm talking about, and I don't even want to talk about it anymore. And I just want to simply say that I don't know that I will ever forgive that man for that call or any other since, because that call changed the trajectory of Tottenham Hotspur. For better or for worse, it changed the trajectory of Tottenham Hotspur. And so for me, I can't look at these calls in a vacuum.
I don't think you can look at them in a vacuum. I don't think that's, I agree with you. I don't think that's fair. I think you have to take it as a whole. And that's not to say that that's the right thing to do. And again, I'm not here to argue whether or not Cootie deserves the reputation that he has so earned within the Premier League. But to be fair to Michael Oliver, which is not something I really want to do, there was no VAR for this challenge. He immediately went to the back pocket and pulled the red.
But that doesn't mean he was right. And that's why we need VAR to come back.
That's the thing.
But I'm not saying that he was right. I'm not saying he was right. I'm not saying he was right. I'm saying that in that very same day, another referee in the Premier League gave something egregiously worse than that as a yellow card. And so for you to tell me that Michael Oliver was completely justified in going directly to the back pocket, I would tell you to fuck right off, because in this league, the majority of these officials would rather have VAR prove them right than VAR prove them wrong. And that's exactly what Michael Oliver did in making that call. Because he said, this is what I saw on the pitch. You better hope VAR bails your ass out. And all VAR had to do was go, oh, yep, that was terrible. And if you listen to any of the commentary, they're like, oh, it's a red, that's totally a red, losing their fucking mind. Yet Tottenham Hotspur, Andrew, is carded at a higher rate than any other team in the Premier League. And the fouls to card ratio is it's almost 2 times worse than Arsenal and United.
So
Theirs is like 7.2 or 7.1, and ours is 4.1.
I saw the stat you're referencing,
and I'm looking at that, buddy. I can't.
I saw the stat you're referencing, and I think that I know exactly what you're saying. I think that there's a thing that happens though where reputations get built, and I know you're talking about media narratives and all of those things. I actually want to point to a little bit of something in regards to just the way, and this is actually going to somewhat absolve Cristian Romero, what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Because I actually don't think all of this is on Cootie. I think some of this, and bear with me here, some of this is actually, to me, going to be blamed on the way that we're playing and the way that we're setting up to play. Because not only are we setting up in a way that is preventing us from being a forward-thinking club and preventing us from being, open and free-flowing and forward, we're playing in a way that is collect the ball, hit it up into the air, and then fight like hell to win a second ball. And that's going to lead to a lot of scenarios where you're going to get people kicking each other. It's going to lead to a lot of scenarios where you're going to get fouls that you didn't mean to commit or fouls that are a little too hard. And you know what it's also going to lead to? It's also going to lead to a lot of injuries. And I'm not saying all of these injuries are caused by this specific way of playing, but guess what? Guys snap their toe ligaments sometimes when you're playing in a very haphazard and ass backwards kind of way. So I really do think that some of this pressure that is built up on this team has led to not only the injuries, but also the frequency as to which we see Spurs getting called for fouls and getting bookings and getting red cards for that matter. And I think that this is, I'm not pointing every single thing that's gone wrong over the last number of years on Thomas Frank, but what is going on right now, a lot of this just has to do with everything that he has built here over these last, what has it been, 9 months? It's been really, really drastic, and I can't help but wonder if they stopped just having to fight for every single second and third ball because they don't know how to progress the ball through the midfield or up the wings. Where would we be now?
You ever seen someone who doesn't know how to drive stick get into an Italian sports car?
That is kind of what it feels like. I would agree with you.
Every time I come on this podcast recently, I find myself sounding a little bit like a broken record. But as I mentioned to you earlier, like, every time this man speaks, it is so abundantly clear that he is out of his depth.
I mean, the man didn't even know that Cristian Romero was the most red-carded player in the league since he joined a few years ago. How do you not have that simple, basic knowledge about your own players? It's baffling to me.
What's baffling to me is the point that you made earlier, which is I don't even know what the fuck we're doing. There's nothing for us to be hopeful about. Like, what are you even saying that you're trying to accomplish right now? Because the football looks rudimentary. You said that you want to come in and focus on shutting up shop. We're leaking more goals than we leaked under Ange. You say that you want to be progressive and you want to be on the be thoughtful in your approach and have intention. And when you get into the final third, it looks like a monkey fucking a football. Like, it's awful, buddy. Like I got nothing to hang my hat on and say this is going to get better.
And you could really see too when Spurs did fall down in this match after I'm not talking about going down a man. I'm talking about going down a goal. You could really kind of sense that, and you could even see it based on his substitutions that he made in the match, that we're going to try and just preserve this and not let it get out of hand. We're not going to try and get anything out of this game. He was simply looking at goal difference at that point, which, by the way, Spurs goal difference right now is dead even, 35 for, 35 against. That is kind of what you're talking about. It's a very stuck in neutral feeling. And dare I say, they better not put it in reverse anytime soon because you can't go much further back. That's
Well,
the big
I
problem.
mean, the truth is, dude, we're one injury away from playing the kids in every position.
Well, I want to talk about that too because you mentioned Sousa. He made his first appearance in this match out of necessity because Udogi goes off injured about 10 minutes into the second half. Udogi's now going to miss at least a month, which puts us in a really weird spot from a fullback standpoint, obviously, because Porro is also out. Now, Spence is supposed to return for the Newcastle match, but that leaves you basically with Spence on the left side. They played Archie Gray at right back in this match. I guess he's going to be the right back going forward, and then Sousa backs them up. It's a very similar story when you look at the center backs because Romero's suspension, Danso's injury. You're now dealing with Van de Ven and Dragashin and nothing else behind him really.
Janai Byfield.
Janai Byfield, right? And he's been getting the minutes, strangely enough, because they've had
He's.
to.
I want to say this right now. He's really fucking good.
He's fun to watch for sure, but I'm also not putting my expectations super high just because of the age and the experience level.
I hear what you're saying, and there's a decent chance that he gets rinsed, as he's playing the Premier League because it's the best league in the world. But I'm telling you, this kid has the chops to stick. We were having a conversation in the chat, I think, about a month ago about the players that we think that are currently in our youth setup that are gonna actually play 50 matches for Spurs, and Janai Byfield is definitely on my list.
I would love to see more of Byfield, honestly. I just would not love to see it in the middle of a relegation scrap, which I think is what we're going to see. That's the problem. The subs. Though,
I mean,
in this
it's
match
gonna feel like that. It's gonna feel like that for the next two matches. I guess is just the way that I say it. After Arsenal, we get a little bit of a reprieve. Nothing easy when you're in the lower half of the table, but at least it's not a murderer's row.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to feel that way for the next 2 months, 2.5 months, not just the next two matches. I think there's a lot because I don't see these injuries getting any better. I think that's my problem. And to the point, the subs that he made in this match, I mean, bringing Odebear off, I thought, okay, that was the admission that they're not really going to try and get anything out of the game. But
His
there's
stuff's
just
been
not a
so
lot of
questionable.
there's just not a lot of other bodies that can come into this team right now. So, I mean, I guess I guess Sousa was actually okay coming on, a 19-year-old with not a lot of experience, but comes on and holds his own. I guess from a standpoint of who are the bodies that we even have, that's where I'm just confused because the injury list is at this point longer than decent backups. It's just it's not pretty from that standpoint. But is there anything else from the game we specifically need to touch on? Because, like I said, other than Sousa coming on, I don't really have a whole lot else for you.
No, I mean, for me, Sousa was probably one of the high points, and otherwise, like, Sousa was the high point for me, I guess, from an otherwise pretty fruitless match. I mean, the other thing that made this match really suck is that it was 4:30 in the morning on the West Coast.
That was the one benefit that I had being on the East Coast this weekend was that the game was a little bit later for me. So
Yeah, brother. And I mean, I remember, like, I think I was in the chat and I was like,
why am I awake right now? Kind of thing.
no, I think I literally he got shown the red, I was like, and I'm going back to sleep.
Yeah,
And I think that's exactly what happened. No, when you go back and watch it, like I think Sal's is a good find. I shout to Flab and the guys of Fighting Cock fame. He does a podcast called The Lab, which is one of my favorites. And he did an interview with an English journalist who lives in Brazil and covers Brazilian football and is like a Brazilian football pundit, but he's an English guy, which is pretty cool. And he covered Sousa and his team extensively at Santos. And he talked about how they were like in relegation scraps and like the ultras were firebombing the pitch and like shit was crazy basically. And Sousa had a really good account of himself, all things considered. Sousa, I don't want to say his name wrong, but I don't know how to properly say it in this moment. Um, but the journalist was saying that he's a kid of character, and he doesn't shrink to a challenge. So I like those things. He also said he is the best left back in his Brazilian class.
Well, Spurs are going to need a lot of it. Speaking of Sousa, or however we are pronouncing it, let's touch briefly on the man who found him, quote unquote, Johan Lange, who did a video last week, which was, I guess, attempting to explain what the hell happened in January. And as Johan Lange
looked like a hostage video.
Well, as Lange is one to do, he spoke and didn't really say anything because he speaks in just complete cliche word salad sentences that don't really give you any insight. Frankly, it's not an interesting watch. You're not going to learn anything.
It's mush.
But the one thing that we did kind of learn this week, at least about the director of football setup, is that Spurs are in fact planning to replace Fabio Paratici and going to keep a two-pronged director of football system in place. The whole two heads is better than one theory, I suppose. Look how well it's gone thus far, of course. What is your take on that? Because I made it quite clear at the start of the season that I thought this was a weird setup. It's obviously made weirder by the fact that one of the two people in that setup bolted halfway through the season. I don't really know what it is Johan Lange brings to the table, and it feels like they want him to stick around, but they also need an adult in the room to help hold his hand. That's what it feels like to me.
Well, I mean, I think that you hit it right on the head from the beginning, which is he speaks in word salad gibberish nonsense. You need somebody. Your director of football needs to have a bit about him, and Johan Lange doesn't have anything about him. He looks. I've often said that Thomas Frank looks like an AP history teacher, and Johan Lange looks like the AP chemistry teacher buddy that he has lunch with every day. And that's 100% what we're talking about. And the guy's fantastic at what he does, which is youth scouting, which is why we continue to buy youth players from all over the place. And we just brought in James Wilson from Hearts. And, that's another youth project opportunity that we have. We have our fingers in a lot of youth pies, which is a wild thing to say. You may want to check his hard drive. No, but I'm obviously I'm just over here saying there are certain things that he's good at and certain things that he's not good at. And what he's not good at is managing a transfer window in the Premier League. He just did not look like he knew what was going on. It gave me Steve Hitchen vibes.
It's almost like he's set up to be the director of football at a club like Brentford and not at Tottenham Hotspur, which could be said about the manager that we have as well, I feel like.
And our dear friend Scotty has made this point on numerous occasions that, Johan Lange left fucking Aston Villa and their trajectory heads up. And you see how well Brentford's doing without Thomas Frank. And you see what that scummy lot is doing down the road without Vinay Venkatesham. And you start scratching your head and go, why did we pick people that we didn't want to be like the teams that they just fucking came from? What are we doing?
None of it's very good. I don't think we know who will replace Paratici, but I would just hope that it is someone that is more interested in signing high-quality first-team players who are maybe of legal drinking age. That would be my choice. Spurs did also this week finalize their Champions League squad list A for the round of 16 matchup, which will come up in March. They added, of course, Conor Gallagher, who was a signing in January. They also added Radu Dragusin and Matisse Tell, who is back in the squad after originally not being in and then being in and then being removed again. He's back in again, which is good for him. Not sure he's going to be wanting to play at this point under Thomas Frank, but he's in the squad. Removed from the squad are Ben Davis, of course, who is injured, Rodrigo Bentancur, who is, of course, injured, and then Brennan Johnson, who was, of course, sold. The big, I guess, misses here are Ibasuma and Dejan Kulusevski. We can talk about Kulusevski. It was said today by Thomas Frank that he is not sure if Kulusevski is going to be back before the end of the season at this point.
I hope he's not.
That's just the injury that never ends. You hope he's not?
Well, then, I hope he's not. Well, no, let's have a conversation about it. It's not the injury that never ends. The guy had a fucking patella tendon injury on the last match of the Premier League season last year. Like, he's doing everything that he can to be on schedule. And the problem is there's still stiffness and there's still pain. And you can't rush that. You can't rush that. If you want all of Dejan Kulusevski back, you just have to take the year on the shelf and give him another preseason and get him rolling back in. See if he can get up to speed for Sweden in their knockouts for the World Cup coming up. And like maybe that's his target date to kind of like get back into it. See if he can go to that tournament and play sparingly off the bench, just be around the team and like roll back into it for next season. Like as much as I'd love Kulusevski back in this team, like I want Dejan Kulusevski the player. I don't want him just as a uniform in my squad.
I feel that. What do you think about leaving Basuma out of the Champions League squad? Obviously, none of us are huge Basuma
I don't
fans.
trust him on an away day in Europe.
Sure, I feel that, but it also feels like, hey, this midfield pretty damn thin right now. Doesn't it feel like he would have been a nice option to have at least? That is an interesting one for me, especially because of the fact that Mohamed Kudus and Kevin Danso kept their spots in the Champions League squad despite their injuries. So maybe
they expect Kudus back.
And we're now hearing perhaps Danso could be back before the end of the season, but I don't think he's going to be back before next month for this Champions League tie. So it is a little bit questionable there as well. I don't know, man. The Kulusevski thing, to me, I think the thing that frustrates me the most about it is just how weird the club has been about it. Like it was originally described as a knock, and the guy has not been seen.
It was originally described. I think, honest to God, Andrew, I think what happened is originally it was a knock. He tried to play on it, injured it worse, and now it's fucked.
That very well could be the case, which is not good either. That's not good at all.
It's not fucking good.
Let's touch on another 2-0 defeat for Spurs this weekend as the women did show up to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They hosted the defending champions Chelsea, and honestly, scoreline 2-0, match was way closer than that. It was certainly way closer than it was on the men's side of things. Spurs, in fact, kind of kicked ass in the first 30 minutes of this match. They were really on top of Chelsea, really producing many more of the scoring chances, and just could not seem to finish. I mean, there were multiple chances for multiple players, and they just could not get anything into the back of the net. It was frustrating, but also one of those matches that was exciting because you felt like Spurs were really up for it. You know, it was in the stadium.
Yeah.
There was a good crowd. There was a good vibe about things. And the play was high quality. Everything was going kind of well. And then Chelsea got a goal right before half, and it kind of took the air right out of the balloon. They came out after half, got a goal shortly after halftime, and that was kind of all she wrote. The rest of the second half was very much Chelsea on the front foot, playing with a 2-0 lead and controlling just the state of play from there on.
They shut it down, man. And I think that you made a great shout. Like, the air really did fly out of the room when that first Chelsea goal went in. And I think a big part of the reason why is because Spurs had so many chances in that first half of their own that went wanting. And, then when you concede right before halftime, it's a deflating feeling, or at least it can be. And then, as you mentioned, when you concede directly coming out of the locker room, at that point in time, it's pretty much all she wrote. Chelsea did a great job of riding out, the 2-0 victory and locking the game down, man. They killed the game off very well.
It was a first start for Julie Blackstad over on the left side, and a first appearance for Hannah Vick, to the January signings who had not started yet. Both got appearances in this one, and honestly, I kind of liked what Martin Ho did off the bench in this match, because once that 2-0 did come about, it was like, all right, let's get some players some experience, not only in front of a team like Chelsea, but in a stadium like this. So he brought on Lena Gunning-Williams in the 66th minute, so she got a really good run of play, which I've been wanting to see her play more. And then Aria Dennis also made an appearance late on in this match after signing a new long-term deal earlier in the week. So getting some of the younger players in and getting some minutes in their legs, I think, is a really important thing. And Martin Ho was at least able to do that. But yeah, I was not as discouraged by this as I think some are, because I'm still one that recognizes that this is not a club that has cracked this top four yet. They are still very clearly outside of the bubble and still trying to pop it. And I'm starting to see signs that they are ready to make that jump. I just don't know that it's quite there yet.
And I think it's a great shout. And as I look at the profile of the team, I see a lot of similarity between what they're missing and what the men's side is missing. They don't have an assassin. They don't have an out and out killer. Somebody that'll snatch your heart in the roughest moments. They don't have a Sonny. They don't have a Harry Kane. They don't. There's no Jess Naz even, right? We're there's
I was going to say,
this is where I'm at.
Jess Naz is the missing piece, obviously,
yeah,
and a very big one. And obviously, you brought in Hamano on loan in January to kind of replace that, but she can't play because it's against Chelsea, her parent club. So there's that unfortunate part. And then the other name that was missing from this match, of course, was Drew Spence, who got the red card the prior week and was suspended. So I think Drew Spence is another one of those pieces that was missing for this one that
I agree.
maybe could have made a difference. You and I were talking before we hit record. This match felt like the kind that if Spurs were able to convert one, or dare I say even two of those early chances they had in the first 30 to 40 minutes, they probably would have gotten at the very least 1 point out of this match.
And I agree with that.
Maybe even gone on to win it. But they weren't able to get the finishing done early on, and things just kind of snowballed from there, unfortunately, on them. What I'm talking about, though, is cracking that top four. They are still right on the verge of it. You look at the standings, 15 matches played. They have 26 points from those 15 matches. They sit in fifth position. They're probably, Champions League is probably out of reach for them at this point. I'm not saying that because it's only a 4-point gap between them and Chelsea, but you've got Arsenal in between, and honestly, there's not a lot of games left in the WSL season either. That's the other thing we have to think about. Because there are only 12 teams in the league, it's only a 22-game season.
They would likely have to win out.
There are only 7 matches to go, including next week's game away to Aston Villa. So you've got to really rack up those points if you want to make that leap. And I don't know that it's going to happen this season. But after the season that they had a year ago, it is nice to see them bounce back into this mid-table and even top of the mid-table form.
Well, we see who they are. We see what they're doing. This club has an identity. We see the plan. It makes sense. They've backed Martin Ho with players that align with his project, both experienced and youth. You have a direction. It looks like Venai Venkatesan did what he did with the team down the road and got their women's team up and running and firing. So if what you're telling me right now is we've got a second team manager as our manager, we've got a director of youth football as our director of football, and the VP of football operations is a women's VP of operations, I appreciate their efforts, but that might be why we're in 15th place in the Premier League on the men's side. However, on the women's side of the ball, that bodes very well because all of those things are aligning quite nicely for the women's team. I think that this time next year, we're going to be talking about a team that is in those Champions League places and fighting for a deep run in one of the domestic cups.
I think that would be the exact perfect goal to have going into next season. And I think it's going to take a big summer, but guess what? They just had a big January. There's no reason they can't go have a big summer as well. And plus, at this point, they're getting absolute 80s pop icons to show up to their games. If anybody missed it, Madonna was in the crowd at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday for this match. Of course,
the material grandma.
Yes, she was attending the U14 women's match earlier in the day because 2 of her adopted children are in Spurs Women's Academy. So That is a tie-in I did not know we were going to get this week. But yes, Madonna, I guess, is Coys at this point, which is saying something. We've got Madonna on our side.
Madonna at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 2027. You heard it here first.
Hey, who knows? Maybe she'll start making music again. Who knows? That is going to do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out the episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot, and leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice to help spread the word about the show. You can also follow us on the socials at Tottenham Depot. We are everywhere. We're Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, whatever they're calling it these days. We're there, so go find us on all those platforms. You can follow Todd at TC_Kasho. You can follow me at Astetka. And like I said, follow us at Tottenham Depot for all the latest. We'll be back with you next week to recap a couple of more matches and whatever the hell else this team wants to put us through. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.